What if resurrection is not only something that happened once, but something that must happen inside every soul? What if the path to new life begins with a death you survive while still breathing? Not the death of the body, the death of the false self, the image, the old identity, the wound you called destiny, the mask you mistook for your face. What if something in you must end before something higher can rise? Mystics across traditions speak of this mystery, dying before you die, passing through darkness, losing the lower self, entering the tomb, rising changed. In Christianity, this image reaches its most powerful form in resurrection. The stone rolled away, the tomb empty, life emerging from the place where everything seemed finished. Tonight, we enter the mystery of the inner resurrection, the soul rising from the false self. The resurrection within, dying before you die. Most people want transformation without death. They want a new life while keeping every old attachment. A new self without surrendering the old story. Healing without releasing the identity built around the wound. Awakening without losing the comfort of sleep. But real transformation asks for more. Something must be laid down. Not because the body is bad, not because the world is evil, but because the false self cannot enter the higher life intact. The mask cannot resurrect. Only the soul can. The false self is built slowly, from fear, from survival, from family stories, from ambition, from trauma, from the need to be approved, desired, respected, protected. At first, it helps you survive. It gives you shape. It helps you move through the world. It protects the wound. But eventually, the protector becomes the prison. The identity that once defended you begins to confine you. The tough one, the impressive one, the victim, the controller, the rescuer, the rebel, the saint, the cynic. All masks, all useful for a time, but none of them are the soul. Resurrection begins when the mask can no longer breathe. This often feels like crisis, a loss, a betrayal, a failure, a collapse of meaning, a season where the old way stops working. The person says, "I do not know who I am anymore." And mystically, that sentence can be terrifying or holy, because the false self is losing its throne. In the resurrection story, there is a tomb. The tomb matters. No one rises without entering it. The tomb is the place of stillness after everything collapses. The place where the old self cannot perform. The place where there is no applause, no argument, no escape. Only silence. The tomb is where the ego learns it is not God. Modern life hates the tomb. It tells you to distract yourself, stay busy, post something, buy something, scroll, run, numb, explain, perform strength. But the soul sometimes needs a sacred darkness, a place where the old voice finally stops talking. Not forever, long enough for something deeper to move. The tomb is not the end. It is the hidden chamber of transformation. In the darkness, the old identity decomposes. The need to control weakens. The resentment loses oxygen. The performance becomes exhausting. The story you told about yourself begins to crack. And beneath it, something quieter appears. Not dramatic, not decorated, real. The witnessing self. The simple self. The soul before costume. What if the thing you feared losing was never truly you? This is the painful grace of inner resurrection. It takes what is false, but gives back what is real. At first, it feels like subtraction. Less certainty, less identity, less noise, less need to prove. But slowly, the emptiness becomes spacious. Peace enters the place where performance used to live. Truth enters the place where image used to live. Presence enters the place where fear used to live. The stone begins to move, and the soul rises. Resurrection is not a return to the old life. That is important. The resurrected self is not the old ego with better branding. It is not the same pattern wearing spiritual language. It is not the wound becoming holy and demanding worship. Resurrection means a new center. You still have a body. You still have a history. You still have memory, desire, responsibility, and pain. But you no longer live from the same root. You begin to act from the soul instead of the wound, from presence instead of panic, from truth instead of performance, from love instead of fear. That is new life, not fantasy, not escape. A change in the center from which you live. In many mystical traditions, the lower self must die so the higher self can be born. The seed must split before the plant rises. The caterpillar must dissolve before the butterfly forms. The lead must enter the furnace before gold appears. Christian resurrection carries this same pattern in a sacred form. Death, silence, transformation, return. But the return is different. The one who rises is not the same as the one who entered. This is why some healing feels like grief. You may grieve the old self, even if the old self was hurting you. You may miss the familiar prison. You may miss the old anger. You may miss the role that gave you identity. You may miss the story that explained your pain. The ego prefers familiar suffering to unknown freedom. So resurrection requires courage. The courage to leave the tomb. The courage to live without the old mask. The courage to stop introducing yourself by your wounds. The courage to let new life feel unfamiliar. The door opens, but you must walk out. And when you do, the world may not understand you. People who knew your old self may call you distant. They may try to pull you back into old patterns. They may prefer the version of you they knew how to control. But resurrection is not a public relations strategy. It is obedience to the deeper life. The resurrected soul does not need everyone to understand. It needs to remain true to the light that called it out. This is not about becoming perfect. The risen life is still human. You will still be tested. You will still feel fear. You will still make mistakes. But something has changed. You know the tomb is not final. You know that endings can hide beginnings. You know that loss can become passage. You know that darkness can be a womb, not only a grave. That knowledge changes a person. It makes them harder to destroy, because they have already met an ending and found life on the other side. So ask yourself, what in you is asking to die? Not your life, not your soul, the false thing, the resentment, the performance, the old fear, the identity built around pain, the bargain that keeps you small. What stone is waiting to be rolled away? Inner resurrection begins with honesty. You enter the tomb by telling the truth. This no longer gives me life. This is not who I am. This pattern is dead, even if I keep carrying it. And when the truth is spoken, the deeper life begins to move. Quietly at first, then with force. Not the force of ego, the force of life returning. Resurrection is the soul's refusal to remain buried. It is the moment the divine life inside you rises through everything that tried to end it. The wound, the betrayal, the failure, the collapse, the long silence. None of it gets the final word. The final word is life. Have you ever experienced an inner resurrection? A season where the old you ended? A darkness that became a doorway? A moment when life returned from a place you thought was finished? Share it in the comments and subscribe to Mystic Pathways, because the visible world is only the surface, and the tomb may be hiding the beginning of new life.